session on something that has been very much debated on Syria, which are the HLP issues and HLP violations surrounding the conflict in Syria since 2011. My name is Asad Lashi. I'm the executive director of Baytna, and I'll be moderating the session, the first part of the session today. I will be speaking in English. For people that are joining us online, there is Arabic interpretation available. Please make sure to choose Arabic from the language button on your Zoom so that you can hear the Arabic interpretation to what I'm saying today. But for our friends that are with us in the room, the meeting will only be in English. So I apologize for that, for those of you who are non-English speakers. It's an honor. Thank you very much, Fadl, for asking me to facilitate the session. And we're joined by an expert panel and policy makers and decision makers to discuss this important file. The session, obviously, is the launch of a report that was prepared by SNHR called The Mechanisms by Which the Syrian Regime Has Used Laws to Expropriate Tens of Thousands of Homes, Properties, and Areas of Land in Homs Governorate. So this is not a theoretical discussion on HLP rights. I think everyone in this room and most of the people online as well have heard a lot about Decree 66, Law number 10, et cetera, that were issued by the Syrian regime since 2011, and we've dissected these different decrees and laws to the nth detail. This is not the purpose of the session. The purpose of this session is to look at practically what does that mean. How did the application of law number 10 in this instance, so decree 66 is very much specific to Marota and Basilia in Damascus. Law number 10 covers the entire country. And how did the application of the different laws that were promulgated by the Syrian regime got translated on the ground? What are the different policies that were used in application? What is obviously the level of involvement of the different Syrian entities in that? And when you look at the report, it's really looking at two areas specific in Homs that have, I think, a peculiarity. One is Bab Amr, and the other one is Al-Qusayr. And the reason I say they have their interesting case studies is because, as most of you know, Al-Qusayr right now is occupied by Hezbollah. Although it's technically back in the hands of the Syrian regime, but the running, forces of Al-Qusayr is Hezbollah. And Bab Amr is and it's a rural area, so it's in rural Homs. Whereas Bab Amr is inside Homs city, and it's one of the neighborhoods of Homs. And I'm not going to go into more details about the report. Fadl will do that when time comes. But before that, we're joined by Madame Brigitte Curmi. Madame Brigitte Curmi is the ambassadrice pour la Syrie at the French Foreign Ministry. And I give now the floor to you, Madame Ambassador.
Thank you very much. Thank you, dear colleagues and dear friends. Let me first of all have a strong thought on all the victims on the conflict ongoing just near Syria, hoping that it will not spread in all the region. First of all, I want to thank Fadel and his team from SNHR for organizing this event, but also more widely for the incredible and precious work you are doing on a daily basis to defend and promote human rights in Syria. Your work is really fundamental. We are gathering today to discuss the specific issue of HLP in Syria, alongside with the obvious rights for food, shelter, and security. The safeguard of house, land, and property is a core human right, protected by international law, and as stated by the UN principles of housing and property restitution for refugees and displaced persons, also known under the name of Pinero Principle. And let me tell you that I was very pleased to receive the visit of Mr. Pinero in Paris recently. What a personality. I want just to put three topics. First, how can we secure Syrian rights to the ownership of their lands and homes following their forcible displacement and the imposition of arbitrary legislation authorizing state control over their lands and homes? And what you just said, Assad, is very telling, for example, for the example of this region occupied by Hezbollah. While 6 million of people have been forced to flee Syria and 6 million others to be internally displaced since the beginning of the Syrian revolution, that is to say that half of the Syrian population left is its initial living place. The regime has taken the occasion of their departure to put in place a system to seize their lands and property. In this regard, and you already mentioned it, Damascus adopted. Hello?
Yes.
Oui, Madame Curmi, on vous entend.
Can you? D'accord. In this regard, Damascus adopted several housing and land decrees and laws in 2012 and 2018, such as the law number 10, organizing the legal framework for expropriation and confiscate properties of people seen as a threat by Damascus. This system is an additional instrument in the hands of the regime to increase its power through political control and punishment measures, and thanks to the economic benefits it earns from it. This measure also fosters demographic engineering initiatives conducted by Damascus to reward regime loyalists and by other actors, including external ones. HLP rights violation hinders the right of return of Syrian refugee and internally displaced people. Confiscation, looting, and destruction of the houses and properties of refugees and displaced persons by the regime and other actors prevent them from returning to their homeland and homes. As we have had the occasion to underline several times, the condition for a safe, dignified, and voluntary return of refugees and displaced persons are not met in Syria today. The respect and protection of HLP rights of the returnees is one of these conditions. The regime has the responsibility to put in place the measures that will allow for a safe return for those who are willing to come back to their original property. Damascus must also deliver the civic and administrative documents needed by those who left their initial living place to recover their HLP rights. And this is an issue where France is really adamant to obtain some results. Between other preconditions for any thinking of helping the refugee to come back. The second topic is how we, the international community, the NGOs, and other entities better support and assist the persons who have been victims of violation of their HLP rights. The issue of HLP rights might seem like a technical issue, and indeed it is a technical issue.
We can hear you, Madam Kyomi.
Okay, because I can't see you.
She
Okay.
cannot see us anymore.
So it's a technical issue. It's a technical issue, but it is broader than that. It is by nature a political issue, and it is part of the process toward a political solution that will include the future of 6 million refugees and 6 million displaced people. Without an efficient solution to this issue, it will be very difficult to build trust in Syria in the future. The right of displaced people to return to their area of origin or choice is fundamental, and Security Council 2254 resolution underscores the need to create the condition for this safe, voluntary, and dignified return. And France remains fully engaged for the full implementation of 2254 resolution. I believe we must join forces to ensure that these people will be able to regain their properties and land. That is why we remind our firm disagreement with house, land, and property infringement in the Human Rights Council resolution on a regular basis. We also are willing to engage a brainstorming with other members of the international community to find ways to push Damascus to deliver the necessary documentation for those willing to freely come back to their properties. And I hope this seminar will help us begin something like that. It is also essential that we acknowledge the necessity to hold those responsible for violation of international humanitarian law. We reiterate our support to the mechanism put in place to advance accountability, the Commission of Inquiry, which has documented forces, displacement, and violation of property rights of displaced people on more than one occasion, and also the triple I mechanism. The international community, the UN and NGOs should remain highly mobilized by advocating for those displaced people and protection and the respect of their basic rights, including their HLP rights. It's important to keep this issue high on the agenda, and a meeting such this one today participate in shedding the light on this issue. To conclude, we are completely available to participate in any reflection between international community, donors, NGO, and so on, to help act concretely, because even if the region is really in a bad situation today, we have to prepare for the future, and it's the work you are doing today is really important, and we need it badly before thinking of any return to the refugees in Syria. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam Ambassador. And I retain two major things from your intervention, mainly how can we secure Syrian rights and how can we protect them, but also how can we also help the victims of HLP violations. And by the we, I mean the global we, whether we're talking about the donor community or we're talking also about your Syrian partners and the international NGOs as well. So thank you very much for this. Mr. Stefan Schneck, the Syria envoy, the German Syria envoy, was supposed to join us, but unfortunately he had some emergency last night and had to apologize. He presents his apologies for not being able to join today. So we will move to Anna Burke, who's the Syria lead at the UK mission in Geneva. Anna, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and thank you to Fidel for the invitation to attend today, and to the SNHR for convening this event and for today's report. Let's get that on. As you say, the report builds on your previous work on what is, as Ambassador Kamri said, quite a technical area of rights in Syria. What the work, I think, does well is demonstrates both the means the Syrian regime has used and the impact this has had, namely on those displaced, disappeared, and the victims of the violence since 2011. It's a really timely discussion when a lot of attention is currently on the conditions needed to facilitate safe and voluntary returns to Syria. These conversations tend to be focused on areas where we as diplomats are quite familiar, such as arbitrary arrests, enforced disappearances, and also the dire humanitarian situation in Syria. I think what the work on HLP illustrates is the real depth of the complexities with Syrian refugees and IDPs when we speak about safe and voluntary returns, and the myriad of considerations that are involved in these. I thought I'd use my time today just to focus a bit on the work we do in Geneva in this area. As has just been said, I lead on our Syria work for the UK mission there, and we are the pen holders for the Human Rights Council resolution, along with a core group of 8 other countries, of which France and Germany are a part. I think when we talk about Geneva, I probably always start with the work of the Commission of Inquiry. I think we have a colleague from the Commission today, yes. And their work on documenting the violations throughout Syria is an important basis on all the work we do at the Human Rights Council and on the wider accountability efforts. They have increasingly focused on HLP rights in their reports in the last few years, and we particularly welcomed their paper of June this year, which outlined the unique impact such laws and practices have on women. We used that paper as a bit of a springboard for our resolution this summer in Geneva. This sought to highlight the social, economic, and political rights of women in particular in Syria. And we used it to highlight the fact that the conflict has left many women as the breadwinners for their families and often the first to return to Syria. They do this within a legal framework and a culture that discriminates against them, with rights to property and inheritance out of reach in the absence of male family members who have been killed or are missing. I think the interesting thing about this resolution in particular is it received a notable level of meaningful engagement from a cross-regional group of states outside of our normal engagement in Geneva. I think it's an area of interest for many who don't normally engage on Syria in the broader context because of their own experiences with HLP as part of transnational justice programs in their own countries. I think namely the Latin American countries are very engaged, not only for the gender aspect, which they're very active on, but also they have their own expertise to add to the discussion. So it brings them into a discussion that they might not always be part of. And I think it demonstrates not only that this area is crucially important in its own right, but it also plays a key role in ensuring continued engagement on the Syria file from a broader group of the international community who have specific expertise to give. I also just wanted to touch on the importance of civil society in our work. And I can't stress enough how much we rely on CSOs to inform our work in Geneva on this area and others. We were grateful for Syrian NGOs who engaged on the text in June in particular and helped us refine this. As I mentioned, it's quite a technical area on which CSOs have by far the most experience. Ambassador Kamri has also noted our united position on the need for political solution in line with 2254. CSOs also play a crucial role in ensuring HLP rights are reflected in this, and the core group were fortunate to be briefed by the Civil Society Support Room thematic working group on protection priorities in April in Geneva, which, alongside informing the work of the Office of Special Envoy, was hugely helpful and informative for us when we were thinking about working on this text for the summer session. Syrian CSOs will play a pivotal role in driving this agenda forward. Syrian women in particular should be empowered to play a role in all areas of political solution and transitional justice, given their unique experience and perspective to ensure that any reforms in this space are fair and equitable. I'll leave it there, but I look forward to engaging in further discussions this afternoon with the experts on this and learning more on this area. Please do reach out to me or others in the UK for anything else we can do in this space, including in Geneva, but also in London or with our team in Beirut. And I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bird, for your intervention. You're absolutely right that HLP issues have been an area of interest for non-traditional actors, exactly as you mentioned, and it was a very good entry point to engage the Latin Americans. But not only the Latin Americans, we're also able to engage some African states on these issues, especially some of the African states that have lived through, you know, a similar experience, and you know, highlighting the gender perspective in HLP issues cannot be overstated. It's very obvious, especially given also personal status laws that exist in Syria today that are gender discriminating and will therefore even create further HLP issues that might not be seen as immediately as some of the violations that exist. So thank you very much for highlighting that. We will move now to Fadl Abdelghani, the Executive Director of SNHR, for a presentation about the report. Fadl, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Asad, and for my colleague for their presentation. I will present the report. I don't know if I will be able to do that in this short period, but I'll try my best. I think I'll jump there because the report is more important than my face. Okay, here we are. This is the report, and as Asad mentioned, there is like a lot of thematic discussion or research about the laws implemented or issued by the Syrian regime, which is also we worked on, and we published also an intensive report, gathered all of those laws, published by The Guardian a few months ago. We highlight all of those laws even before 2011 and after. But SNHR is always keen to see how particularly those will be implemented on the ground. In order to do that, we need to build a complex methodology. I can assure you that this is one of the most complicated reports we ever did, and this is unprecedented because this for the first time it's showing how is practically the regime seized properties and land, and we actually reach out to an interesting outcome, which will come at the end. And we will publish this report. So this now presentation just only for you. I hope next week will be for public. But I want to speak about the methodology. In order to achieve that, we need to speak. First of all, we choose Homs province based on many factors. Why we need to move province by province. So we started with Homs for many reasons. One of them that Homs faced the vast majorities of displacement, comparing with resident. So we need to talk with hundreds of victims whose their lands and properties being seized based on laws, but we need to verify their testimonies as well as an investigator. In order to do that, we moved back to our database which is contained thousands of photos and videos of destruction. We monitor the move of displacement, and then we rely on satellite images. And here we actually rely on our experience, but not only that, we contacted with a lot of UN agencies like the High Commissioner, OCHA, the Commission of Inquiry, our colleague at Human Rights Watch, in order to follow the recent tech, how they are analysis the destruction. And we are following that. And that's what is the report is showing. It's showing mainly the destruction because this destruction is linked genuinely to the HLP. But in our report, we highlighted that for sure, the Assad regime laws can target any Syrian, but mainly it's targeting three categories: the refugees, the ITPs, the forced disappearances, and the final one is those who's been killed but not registered in the civil registry. There is hundreds of thousands, and I disappointed that this point didn't been taking the real discussion and consideration. There is hundreds of thousands of Syrians being killed and not officially registered in the civil registry. Those three categories are mainly affected by the HLP laws or decrees issued by the regime. We highlighted also what is the regime, what is the violation, committed by the regime, which is lead to those people to be forcibly displaced. Displaced mean ITPs and refugees. So here we are. I'll move quickly as possible as we can, 175 pages. So, yeah. So this is what I talked about, the three categories. Then this is a long methodology, and we refer to our general methodology as well. Lots of points I didn't highlight it in the methodologies, but it's okay. You can read it. So this is the report plan. So how is Homs engaged in the popular uprising and it's paid a heavy price? And what is the violation being committed because of their engagement in the popular uprising? And then we analyze the destruction. Why we choose destruction, as I mentioned, there is a lot of violation for sure. Disappearance, we highlight that, torture, but destruction, it's linked genuinely to the HLP rights. So we focus on destruction. And this is the challenges and limitation. I can assure you that we learn a lot from this report in order to invest this learning in our next province, which we choose Dar'a. Hopefully we'll invite you again in our reports in Dar'a province next year. So here I'll move quickly. This is so here we presented the background of the province and all of that. And here we presented the violations. So 30,571 Homsi Syrian citizens being killed by all parties, 95% by Assad regime. For sure, this scale of killing will lead to the vast vast displacement. And this is distributed by years. How has this been? How many children, how many women? So children and women are always keen and are always like presented in all of our reports. And we highlighted the most notable massacres being committed as well. And we will notice that the testimonies of the victims is always accompany the report. So they are like core of our work. They are the core of our work. And we rely deeply in their testimonies. Here we are, how many those are who's still in detention or forcibly disappear by all parties. So we'll move here, who's being killed due to torture. So 2,416 Homsi or Syrian citizen. And here we'll move ahead how to the weapons being used. We choose the barrel bombs. So see how many barrel bombs being dropped on Homs city and rule. And then we choose the chemical weapons, incendiary weapons, the cluster ammunition, all of that, landmines. Yeah, so the attacks against vital facilities, all of that for sure will lead for the massive displacement. Moving ahead to analysis the destruction. And this is the key part, one of the key part of the report, and it took from us days and nights. And we put categories actually. So this is Homs city, North Rural Homs Governorate. So we divided the provinces. Then the third category is towns whose control, because as you know, there is like lots of parties control Homs. For example, here the third category is for control between Syrian regime and Free Syrian Army or opposition, and also this is the town controlled by ISIS, which is eastern Homs located.
Palmyra.
Yeah, الضمير and also السخنة البلدتين, lots of areas.
قريتين.
Eastern Homs قريتين. So here we are. We choose this the neighborhood Al Qusayr to analyze the destruction. Those are the photos you are seeing here, which is taken lots of time to analyze the destruction in this neighborhood. This is here the density, the damage density, and here we have partially damaged, severely, and completely, 3 categories. And this one taken also lots of times to highlight building by building. So this is the implementation on the ground. And we analyze lots of photos and lots of villages similar, so that this report took from us 11 months of continuous heavy work. So there is a dedicated team working only on those analyses. Another team is collecting testimonies. Then we match all of that and in order to get to this result. So this is Al Qusur neighborhood. This is Baba Amr. And lots of information about the neighborhood, where it's located, the population, and all of that. And this is the destruction in Baba Amr as well. So we choose, and now we move to rural Homs. This is Al Rastan. Again, we highlight that, so I will move. This is Al Rastan. We choose also a prominent building, or this is a school, for example. This is before and after. How is some of them be even bulldozered? So I'll keep moving. This is, we highlight notable attacks or building. This is bakery, all of that. So before and after, how the regime implemented that. Again, so we are moving. What's happened here? Okay. So this is Talbisa. This is Teldo, same, we repeat it again. Because if we need to get the result, we need to analyze different neighborhoods and villages in order to assure that this is a strategy. And always there is testimonies for people, their houses being or lands being destroyed or being seized. This is actually needed. Then we come to the studies cases, which is Baba Amr and Al Qusair. We studied those in more details than the presented cases we refer to in the report. So I'll move to Baba Amr, and I'll also jump to the result, to the outcome. This Al-Buwaida Al-Sharqiyya controlled by. So this is also before and after Al-Qaryatain. So in Baba Amr and Al-Qusair as well, we presented what is those case studies, what is the violation those case studies also being faced that lead to the displacement and the destruction they are subjected to. So how many barrel bombs being Baba Amr being attacked, how many persons being killed from Baba Amr, how many persons being disappeared, all of that. And see, this is also, those are the cases studied, those are specific houses. We get the photos from specific houses, those houses being looted or seized. Those are provided by victims themselves. So we analyze where is the location. We reach out to the location geographically. Where is this, when it being destructed, the time. So we always make this intersecting between what is the victims is telling us, what we have, verifying all of that. So here we can notice that there is also seizing and looting for the staff and properties itself inside the houses. And this is like the regime is leaving those for the security forces, for the army, because the regime is focusing on the real assets, which is the lands, the properties itself. So this is another house. Those photos being provided by the victims themselves. So here we presented the method being used by the Syrian regime to seize the real estate methodologies, and always we rely on victims' message. This is like being published by announcement by the Syrian regime. I'll keep moving to reach to the case study. And this is a small survey outcome of the patterns of violation against properties right in Homs Province. So the vast majority is housing, then it's coming the commercial industry, then the agriculture, then lands area, and then the machinery. But mainly the three main categories: housing coming on the top. So here, Baba Amr. Again, we repeated the same methodologies, but we choose those in-depth cases. This is the destruction against Baba Amr. So I will here move to the main outcome. This is a violation to Baba Amr subject to. We notice actually that the regime shelling and attacking. So this is the main area in Baba Amr being attacked. The interesting outcome that this shelling or attacks is not random. the regime is choosing the most expensive area in the neighborhood to be attacked in order to invest that for the rebuilding. And all of our work in the report in order to prove that, and that's what we noticed actually while we are working, we noticed that, and actually I forget to mention and to thanks lots of activists from Homs. We conducted many workshops of consultation, and they have this feeling actually, not only in Homs. And when we will move to Dar'a, we'll see if there is a similar strategy. But that's what we noticed. That sorry, Asad, you are dictatorship, but I have a lot of recommendation. We invited the Commission of Inquiry, the Special Envoy. We have states on board. We need
you have 1 minute.
1 minute. Okay.
So.
Okay, but
so can you move to recommendations?
Yeah. Okay.
Let's move to recommendations.
Sure. So this is the outcome. This is the outcome, that this shelling and destruction is a tactic itself. It's targeting near the industrial area, the expensive street in the neighborhood. Similar outcome to Al Qusayr. I will not be able to present that due to Asad request, but finally, we actually doing all of this work in order to assure the rights for those who left their properties. That can enable them to, that can be presented by them again to reclaim their house and landing. And in order to request from the states that all of those laws being issued and this procedure being made by Assad regime is illegal, which is built based on laws issued because the regime, as we know, controlled the parliament, controlled the legislation and the executive authorities, all of that. So we are trying to revoke all of what is the regime doing by proving how is the regime practically is doing that, and how is he's moving in order to again, when the regime sees the area again, to invest that in the rebuilding. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Fadl, for this very comprehensive presentation about the report. And you know, on a lighter note, it's always interesting to see a Hamwi presenting about Homs. So, but I'm eager to also see the results from Dar'a. The reason I mentioned that is Dar'a was a quote-unquote liberated area for a much longer period, and there was a lot of real estate transactions during opposition control to Dar'a. So it'll be very interesting to see how the Syrian regime dealt with the new facts on the ground once it recaptured Dar'a. I know that the case in Qusayr wasn't that obvious, but in Dar'a and in Eastern Ghouta, if you move there, the case will be much more of a problem. So thank you very much for this. But knowing that Brigitte will leave us fairly soon, I have actually a question to Brigitte and Anna before we go to you, Marie, if that's okay. And my question is about early recovery projects. There's a push from the UN and from different actors, including from Syrian civil society organizations, to increase early recovery support. And it's absolutely needed. We're all in favor of more early recovery support. However, the challenge with that comes exactly with these issues. How can we make sure, and I know it's the $1 million question, how can we make sure that we can contribute to early recovery projects without furthering HLP violations, contributing to new HLP violations that did not exist? So if you have the $1 million answer, please let us know. It's something that is keeping us all awake, I think, at the moment, those of us that are involved in the early recovery discussion. I'll start with you, Brigitte, and then I will go to Anna, if that's okay. Yeah. Brigitte, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Assad. I guess we are under Chatham House rules.
Yes, we are, definitely.
Okay, so...
no, Brigitte, pardon. We are actually being streamed online, so we're not under Chatham House rules. We're being seen. Sorry, I take that back. Because we're on Zoom. We're on Zoom, yes, sorry. And we don't have Brigitte anymore. Brigitte, are you still with us?
Thank you. Okay. Can you hear? Can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
I'm here. Okay.
We can hear you.
So, okay. Assad, I think your question is the question, because it's all the game between how to get reconstruction without calling it reconstruction, one. Two, how to push the international community to be on the side of the Syrian people, which is very needed, because we need to help the Syrian people in this period where emergency has gone and basic needs are very much there, and scaling up day after day due to the economic situation. It's a catch-22 situation, but the way we avoid the traps you are describing is for us, at least for France, to conduct all our aid with partners we know for a long time, with due diligence on the project, and to be sure that our money is going to the right beneficiaries. We have strict rules, sometimes a little bit heavy for the partners, but this is mandatory in this sort of situation where you can be subject to either diversion of aid or demographic engineering, as we said, and so on. So we are very conscious about this issue, and it's particularly the case for the issue of refugees, because Damascus would like us to put early recovery money to because they pretend the question is not political, it's economical, and we need to reinforce basic needs for the refugees to be able to come back home. And we are not at all convinced that this is the right sequence. We need to ensure the rights, the basic rights, security, and HLP between other subjects before thinking of helping on this subject. But we have to find the balance between being able to do early recovery because it's really needed, not only for refugees, but also for ordinary people all over Syria. We do early recovery in the Nest, we do early recovery in the Northwest, we do early recovery in the regime area, as I told you, in our ways, to be sure that there is no diversion, and we've identified partners. But believe us, and I think it's the case for the majority of my partners in the Quad, for example, we have strict regulations exactly to avoid the sort of traps you are describing. So we don't buy the narrative of the regime about the return of refugees being problematic because of economic situation. We believe this is the contrary. The regime have to put a list, very precise list of rights into implementation before thinking of any return. That's why in my presentation at the beginning I said the conditions are not met today. And this is between our question, this tricky question about early recovery, because I always said we are catch in two impossible choices. One is to contemplate the status quo and doing nothing for the Syrians who are paying the double price of being mistreated and prisoner of a regime, and on the other hand, to go for normalization and so on, which is not at all the French position. Between these two impossible choices, our duty is to stand by the Syrian population, and early recovery is part of this efforts. But this is a delicate subject where we have to be really strict about the way we do it, and be sure that we have in mind that we don't want to participate in any manipulation on areas, on etc. That's why it's so important, the work you are doing today. So I hope I answered this impossible
Absolutely.
question, but voilà.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Brigitte.
And I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. I guess because I have to leave at 3 and it's already 3. I will miss Marie's presentation, but I hope she will send it to me because I have other obligations, as you can imagine, in this situation. Thank you very much, and keep us posted, please.
We will do. Thank you very much for your participation.
Thank you.
Anna, do you have some thoughts? Or no, the mic. Sorry.
By and large, I would just echo Ambassador Camille's remarks, which are very closely aligned with our own. I think the way we potentially differentiate between early recovery and reconstruction is that reconstruction focuses on the state and its capacity, whereas early recovery focuses on people, which is our priority. We maintain our policy of no reconstruction without a political solution, but we do also recognise that there can be more sustainable and effective results by helping individuals and communities become more self-reliant. So on that basis, we are engaging on projects that do that, but as Brigitte said, it's a very, very careful line between doing that and also the due diligence and that we need to make sure that none of it benefits the regime or legitimizes the state. So yeah, just to add to that.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Anna. And now to Marie Forestier. Marie Forestier is the Senior Syria Advisor at the European Institute for Peace. Marie, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Assad. Thank you, Fadel, and to the SNHR for organizing this event. And congratulations for your reports. It's a massive work, very impressive. So I'm going to talk about a very specific issue on HLP. I just completed a research on the issues and challenges faced by women who are wives of disappeared men and who seek to claim their property rights when returning to their home area. So this is very, very specific, and that's because at the intersection of displacement and disappearance, unique challenges and vulnerabilities appear for women. And I try to explore that. I would like to highlight that this is not really reflecting what is happening now on the ground. We cannot say that there is a movement of women returning and seeking their property rights, but the idea is more, as we said earlier, to prepare for the future, to unpack challenges and try to think how to support these women, because in the end, it will affect tens of thousands of people when the day comes. So I will not go again over HLP violations, which are a central feature of the Syrian conflict. Fadel talked about that at length, neither about HLP laws. We also discussed it. I will focus really on the situation of wives of disappeared. First of all, I will start with the, I would say, original problem, which is that there is no provision in the Syrian law regarding joint ownership of marital assets, and only men's names appear on title of deeds. According to a research by NRC, only 4% of properties are registered under the name of women. So it's not related to the conflict, but this is like the initial issue regarding women accessing HLP. Another challenge you're all familiar with, so I'll be quick, is missing documentation. When going on displacement, people are more likely to miss property documents, ID, and marriage certificates, which all will be necessary for women when claiming their property rights. Another issue specifically affecting women is cultural norm and also inheritance law. According to the personal status law, a woman who has children will inherit only 1/8 of her husband's assets, because inheritance is the only way of accessing a husband's asset for a woman, because, as I said earlier, there is no joint marital assets provision. And the cultural issue you will all be familiar with as well is that in some conservative communities, it's perceived as inappropriate for women to undertake the procedure to claim HLP rights, to interact with lawyers, with officials to do so. And conversely, when interacting with men and officials, women run the risk of being harassed at that occasion. Another issue, a cultural issue, is the opposition of the in-law family. They might threaten or pressure women not to seek their property right. Just a quick anecdote. I was told about the story of a woman who was willing to undertake the procedure to claim her husband's property, and her family-in-law told her, if you try to do that, we will seek the custody of your children. So it gives you an idea of the cultural obstacle. And very briefly, another obstacle is the cost. It's difficult to give a standard cost, but especially throughout the years, but it will cost for sure more than $1,000 for lawyers' fees and bribes to undertake the procedure. So that, of course, stops a lot of women to undertaking the procedure. So now about the procedure itself. So when a man is missing and the woman, her only way is to claim inheritance, the first step is to declare the missing man as presumed dead. And during wartime, you can do that. It can be done by a competent court after 4 years from the date of the missing. It entails emotional burden for the woman who, for many reasons you can imagine, don't want to make this step to officially declare their husband dead, who might have some hopes. So this is a first obstacle. Then, when seeking to obtain a death certificate, women would need a police report and submit documents such as medical report and statement from the Mukhtar to obtain this police report, stating that the husband has been dead or missing for 4 years. Then, with the police report, the public prosecutor will request intelligence agencies to conduct a security clearance, and I will talk about security clearance in a minute. Then at this stage, if, and that's a big if, you'll see why, the security clearance is approved, the judge of the personal status court may issue a death certificate. So this is this would take months, this would require bribes, and this is far from being certain. Then the issue of the security clearance in itself. So since August 2022, it's mandatory for anyone who wants to obtain a death certificate for non-natural causes of death to get a security clearance. Intelligence officer will run the applicant's name through their database, possibly ask informants. If the applicant is somehow related to someone perceived as part of the opposition, to someone who's been detained or disappeared, and here we're talking about wives of disappeared men, the security clearance will be rejected. So everything stops there. So you'll see here the first key obstacle. And the only way to overcome it is to pay heavy bribes and have connection. You need both. It's not one or the other. So here, and I must say, of course, that there is a fear often from women to interact with officials to obtain the security clearance. And again, with the risk of abuse and extortion, which is also an obstacle in itself. So this requirement of death certificate and security clearance are really difficult to overcome for women and can constitute an obstacle in itself that will lead women to renounce getting their property back. Then the procedure, if this is overcome and for some reasons women have been able to obtain a death certificate, they would claim inheritance at a court. But before that, they would need to obtain a security clearance, this time for the property. So again, the whole security clearance process. And very often there is no answer about this. It's just like, it's not a clear no, it's just no news. And then it also stops there. The woman cannot pursue the procedure further. So in the end, and here we're in a very, very theoretical discussion, but if the security clearance for the property is completed and all the documents are there, then the inheritance procedure will involve a lot of officials, a lot of bribes, and in the end, the personal status court judge may issue a decision, but after a lot of time and a lot of delays. And again, this is more theoretical than anything else. I don't have time here to talk about confiscation, but confiscation of property is also a separated issue because in many, many cases when a man has been disappeared, his property has been confiscated. So if the property has been confiscated, even though there are officially legal challenges to legal avenues to challenge it, it's always rejected. So there is no property to even claim when it has been confiscated. So you see here the addition of all obstacles, which makes it almost impossible in a normal way for women to claim their property. I will conclude talking about restitution and compensation. So as you know, there is no effective and adequate restitution mechanism in Syria at the moment. And I would like to turn all the challenges I described for women into an opportunity in the future to transform an equal structure of property in order to guarantee women an equal access to property. And for that, there is a need of entire reform of the property ownership structure. There is a need for change of mentality in order to lead to a gender equal property restitution system. I will stop here and I will be happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Marie, for bringing up this very important issue and the very important dimension of the gender aspect when it comes to HLP violations, because it's always somehow forgotten that, you know, personal status laws and other aspects of the Syrian law actually impact HLP violations. We get to be too stuck onto Decree 66 or Law Number 10 or whatever it is, without looking at the bigger dimension of what does it actually mean for women and then also sometimes for the children as well, because children are not recognized, children that were born to unknown fathers. I mean, we can go on and on with the different, complications of the current, legal structure that exists around HLP rights, mainly the inheritance and personal status laws. And to add to all of this, you have the cultural norms, exactly as you mentioned. And it's, by the way, it's not only in conservative circles, even in more liberal circles and even in non-Muslim circles, it is also the norm, or it's the expectation, maybe not the norm, but it is the expectation that women will relegate their right to the eldest men, whomever that eldest man is. And it's regional. It's not only Syria, but it's also a bit the same case, maybe to a lesser extent in Lebanon, but in Jordan, in Palestine, they have kind of similar practices or a similar culture. I now want to give the floor to two persons that are with us here in the audience. First, Caroline Howard from the Commission of Inquiry. Caroline, your reactions to what you've heard. Thank you very much first for being with us. Caroline is from the Commission, she's the Chief Investigator on the Syria Commission of Inquiry. So, initial reactions?
Well, yes, thank you very much for the invitation and thank you very much for presenting your research. Obviously, we've echoed over the years many of the findings which you've mentioned, although of course you've had the opportunity to go into both the context in Homs and the situation of women and women's HLP rights in much more detail than we've had at the Commission thus far. But I mean, of course, we have made very similar findings on many of the issues. Thanks also, Anna, for mentioning the great impact which our report seems to have had on gender and HLP and gender, the impact of the conflict in general. I don't really want to speak at length about past findings. I feel like this might be a more forward-looking discussion, but of course, I mean, we have since, I think probably about 2016 or 2017, begun to speak in a bit more detail about some of the very wide-ranging kinds of HLP rights violations that primarily displaced people face. I wrote down a few notes, I mean, just to try and quote a few things. I don't know if that's very useful, but we've, of course, said very clearly that housing, land and property rights frameworks have been used to punish individuals broadly perceived as associated with opposition groups. We've made findings on the war crimes of collective punishment as a result of confiscation of property in Eastern Ghouta. I mean, this is a long time ago now, right? We've also made findings around the war crimes of pillage in government-controlled areas, both through, confiscation of arable land, agricultural land in parts of Idlib, but also in urban areas. But I would just want to mention also, we've made similar findings with respect to non-state armed groups as well. So in Turkish-controlled areas, there are many strong findings around looting and pillage by the SNA, similarly by the SDF, just as an important addition to the findings we already have on government-controlled areas. I mean, you've spoken, I probably missed it right at the beginning, but you spoke about the different HLP frameworks which have been used to punish individuals. And of course, I mean, the different legal administrative measures which have been very well analysed and documented by many of the specialist NGOs working on legal issues here, have been included, or some of them have at least been mentioned in our report. So the counterterrorism law, which has led to the confiscation of property, law 19 of 2012. We've also talked about freezing of assets under the military conscription law, very generally, but I mean, there are many other more detailed legal analysis out there, which have, well, the Commission is not best placed on those, but yeah, I mean, just maybe say thank you very much again for this event, and I hope we can continue the discussion to try and make some positive recommendations about, and also potentially suggestions for the Commission in terms of areas we might want to look at for more thematic work.
Thank you very much, Caroline, and thank you very much for bringing up also the fact that all actors in Syria have committed HLP violations, and we cannot forget, obviously, the case of Afrin and what the so-called Syrian National Army did there, and practices that almost can, I mean, I'm not going to use big words, but could be allegedly qualified as ethnic cleansing, or at least demographic engineering in the area. So definitely, it's not only the Syrian government that has done or has used HLP as a tool for punishing, the people. And now I'd like to move to Lynn Malouf. Yes, I'm putting you on the spot, Dean. And just a very basic question: is the Office of the Special Envoy at all looking at HLP issues, or is this not within your mandate? It's something that is only the mandate, let's say, of the Commission of Inquiry.
Allah, I know you are putting me on the spot. I thought this was not planned, but I am here officially on behalf of the Office of the Special Envoy, and definitely this is an area of interest that the office is looking at, because, sorry, as cannot be any clearer from this discussion, it's an issue that overlaps and intersects with so many other issues. And as you know, the office has focused a lot on issues that have to do with women's rights, with empowering women in the political process. So, I mean, from a certain vantage points, there is some overlap there. But of course, I mean, the main big issue of overlap are the two issues that have come again and again in the discussion, which are the issues of detainees, disappeared persons, and refugees and IDPs. So this is, yes, I mean, just to answer your question, it's definitely an area of interest to us. And I am, I mean, I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be here, to listen to the presentation about SNHR's momentous report, really, and to Marie's very specific but very crucial research that you did, because both of them combined could, you know, give us pointers in terms of what to actually be looking at, not just in the future, but also in terms of transitional measures that can help relieve the day-to-day as we look to solutions, really. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Lynn, and sorry for putting you on the spot, but you know, it was just a question of interest to see if this is being covered. And you raised a very important point, which is the issue of detainees and missing people, and how that is related also to the HLP file. It was highlighted in the report, but we tend also to forget that, you know, it's not only about the refugees and the internally displaced, but it's also about the missing people, the detainees, and you know, the people that have died but have not been registered as that in the civil registry, and where comes all the complications with the inheritance laws, etc. Anyway, thank you very much for everyone. Thank you, Marie. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Brigitte. Thank you, Fadl. That concludes our session. Okay, good. Now I can go back to Chatham House rules. So we have a 15 minute, half an hour break. Okay, we'll have a half an hour break.